Welcome candidates and audience members to the Santa Clara County Board of Education Area 1 Trustees Candidate Forum. I am Max Beckman-Harned with the League of Women Voters of the Los Altos Mountain View area. First, a few housekeeping items. Today's forum will last 1 hour. Due to the nature of a webinar, we can't provide technical assistance to attendees. All forums will be recorded and available the day after each event on our elections page on our website at LWV LAMV for League of Women Voters of Los Altos Mountain View.org and our YouTube channel. Questions for candidates have been submitted with registration. We have combined similar questions to be able to cover as wide a range of topics as possible. Chat will not be available. The League of Women Voters is a nonprofit organization of women and men that promotes informed, active participation in government. We do not support, oppose, or evaluate political candidates or parties, but after careful study, we do take positions on political issues. The League invites anyone who is interested in supporting democracy and local government to join us. Here is the format for today's forum. Each candidate will make a 1-minute opening statement. Questions were selected to be relevant to all candidates and to provide useful information to the audience about issues in this race. Depending on the question, all candidates will be given 60 to 90 seconds to respond. And then finally, the candidates will have 1 minute to make a closing statement. An electronic timer will display each candidate's remaining time. Then the order of questions will alternate between the two candidates. We ask that our candidates to abide by the following. Time limits. When the timer line turns red, I will say thank you. Please finish by completing your sentence. Number 2, respect. Candidates will not interrupt each other. And 3, fairness. Campaign marketing materials will not be visible on candidate screens. And I would like to introduce the two candidates who are running for the Santa Clara County Board of Education Trustees Area 1. Please raise your hand as you are introduced. First, Grace Ma. And second, Melissa Baton-Caswell. Thank you for participating in today's forum. We are now ready to begin with opening statements. Grace will go first. Please start your 1-minute opening statement.
Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you to the Los Altos Mountain View League of Women Voters for the opportunity to speak to you all and describe my priorities for my re-election to the Santa Clara County School Board. My priorities on the county board are the following. First, providing access to technology for all of our students to be successful in distance learning. Second, improving equity in education, making sure all students have an excellent education regardless of zip code or economic circumstances. And third, expanding high-quality childcare and preschool for all families, including essential workers who need to get back to work, and for working families who face long wait lists and high costs. During the pandemic, the COE has been working with the Public Health Department, California Department of Education, and local school districts to provide reopening guidelines and managing access to technology for students without those resources. I am a champion for equal access to great schools for all students. The COE is charged with educating the most vulnerable students in the county, such as the severely disabled, incarcerated youth, and foster youth. I stand for equal access to great schools for all students. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Melissa?
Hi, thank you very much for having me today. I'm Melissa Baton-Caswell. I'm running for Santa Clara County Board of Education because it's time for a change. With the challenges brought by the pandemic, we need someone who will work collaboratively to ensure that our schools work for all of our children, especially Black and Brown kids, special ed students, and low-income children. I have worked as a tech executive for more than 2 decades, served as a local school board member for more than 12, and just finished a term as the president of the Santa Clara County School Boards Association. I'm endorsed by the California Teachers Association and leaders like Anna Eshu, Ro Khanna, former state superintendent Delane Easton, and 16-year state board of education president Michael Kirst. I am honored that 27 out of the 30 local school board members in Trustee Area 1 have endorsed me. Please join them and help me win this November. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now proceed to our questions. I'll read the question, and if any time, say the the second person answering would like me to repeat the question, just please ask me. So we'll start with the first question, which will be 60 seconds. And the question is, the question will go, Melissa, you'll start. And the question is, what is the role of the County Office of Education?
Okay. Tell me when to start.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, the role of the County Office of Education is to make sure that districts and the most vulnerable students and schools are supported across the county. The County Board of Education has some leeway in how to do that. They have programs, they have professional development, they provide direct services, and they also provide support services. Overall, there are county offices across the state of California, and they all do this differently. Our County Office of Education could be the leading county office in the state for this. And I look forward to working with the county office to make sure we understand what the needs of every district is. Once you understand their needs, you will see that the county office probably needs to focus on some new things and some more focused things. But across all of this, it's to serve students across the county of Santa Clara County.
Thank you. Grace?
The role of the County Office of Education is, as Melissa was saying, offering direct services to districts and students of our own. And so the students of our own, as I mentioned, were the most vulnerable. And the county office is a safety net for those kids because the local school districts don't have enough of them for a critical mass. So we service them in economy of scale. As far as service to the districts, we do a lot of infrastructure services. We run payroll, we do professional development. Again, a lot of services and infrastructure that the districts don't have enough, or the districts don't have to spend money themselves, but rather we will do that for them across the county. And so we have done a lot of collaborative work with the districts, and we are the sixth largest county office in the state. And so we're well regarded as far as having expertise in the Inclusion Collaborative, which is in special education, in our foster children and homeless youth work, and in providing services across the county.
Thank you. So now we'll move to the second question, and Grace, you'll go first. This is another 60-second question. What are the most important responsibilities of a board member? And feel free to start.
So the most important responsibilities for the board member is the hiring and firing of the superintendent. That is our main responsibility, and managing the superintendent, who is our only employee. So the superintendent is the supervisor for all the other employees in the County Office of Education. So when we do our evaluations and feedback and discussions with the superintendent, that is doing our job. We also have a responsibility for approving budgets. And so that is our main responsibility for the county office, and the county office itself approves budgets for all the other school districts. We have a number of policy responsibilities where we develop policies and guidelines for the rest of the county in some cases, but because we don't have direct authority, we are more of a convening and facilitating entity. And so we do that with aplomb.
Thank you. Melissa.
Yeah, so I mean, Grace is absolutely right. Hiring and firing the superintendent for any school board is their number one responsibility. But a school board member's role is to represent all of the students. And we have almost 300,000 students across Santa Clara County. So a great school board member makes sure that that is foremost in their mind when they talk about their job and when they think about their job. Great school board members are consistently communicating and connecting with their constituents. And for the county office, it is the school's constituents and the school board members, superintendents, local families, and the students that are being served, both the most vulnerable students and other students that are being supported. The county office could be a fabulous advisor on many different things, and the county board could set that as a priority. They set the priorities for the district.
Thank you. So we'll now move on to our third question, also 60 seconds. And Melissa, you'll go first. How would you assess the financial health of the Office of Education, And what impact has COVID-19 had?
Okay, well, first of all, I don't know if everybody realizes that each district has their own budget and then the county office has their own budget. And so one way to assess the financial health is to look and see if what the spend is matches what the income is. Our county office has a lot of grants that come in for different things, so you have to consider those things as well when you're looking at the whole budget. The way the budgets have changed for basic aid county offices like our own has taken money away from the county office. And that has created a situation where the county office is looking for more grants and trying to bring more collaboratives together that bring in income so that the support services they provide can be supported without the budget going negative. So that would be how I look at this. The spend needs to equal the amount coming in, and we need to be serving all of the children that we are committed and obligated to serve.
Thank you. Grace?
Yes, to assess the financial health of the county office, I have been on the budget study committee for the last 6 years. And I am proud to say that we have a balanced budget with the appropriate 2% reserve, which is state requirement. But in addition to that, we actually have a 4% reserve, which is our own Santa Clara County Board of Education board policy. So we are very healthy with respect to finances. As far as the impact of COVID, we have applied for and received a number of grant applications. We've applied for a lot of the CARES relief funding, and we've been able to receive some of that and be able to use that towards spending for technology and grants with the Board of Supervisors for technology and hotspots for children throughout the county who don't have the reserve or don't have those resources. And so we have a very healthy grant writing department who's been very successful, most recently with a Becky Morgan Family Foundation grant.
Thank you. Okay, and we will now proceed to the fourth question. And this is actually a 90-second question. And Grace, you'll go first. How does the Board of Education work with local district staff and school boards? What works and what changes would you like to see?
Okay. So as far as the interaction between the County Office of Education and the Board of Education with the local school districts, it's a very, it's not the same as between school districts. In that, as I mentioned earlier, the school districts work autonomously, and so they have their own Board of Educations, which they elect locally, and they have their own superintendents who are appointed by the Board of Education. The County Office of Education then has no authority or direct responsibility. For instance, our superintendent isn't the boss of any other superintendent. And likewise, our board, which is elected separately from the other local boards, don't have direct authority. So we are more of a convening and facilitating resource. And so in that way, we have been able to work with local school districts and certainly with the local superintendents. Our superintendent has regular monthly meetings with the superintendent and conveys all the services and information that goes on. The school boards themselves haven't had a lot of interaction other than what's been great is the School Board Association, which under Melissa's direction when she was president, we were able to meet weekly with the county superintendent. And the county superintendent is available as a resource for everyone, although she does do more directly work with all the superintendents. So she's been a great resource for the school board members, and that luckily has been continuing.
Thank you. Melissa.
Yeah, I think that the school districts in the past have operated kind of in silos across Santa Clara County. So everything Grace mentioned is absolutely true. I do think now, in the face of a major pandemic and what we're expecting is going to be the biggest financial freefall in our lifetime, school districts are looking for something different. And Grace, thank you for bringing up the Santa Clara County School Boards Association meetings. One of the things that I heard and was surprised by is how much people's attitude have changed. School board members' attitudes have changed, and they would really like the County Office of Education to provide more guidance and support on really hard problems that we haven't had before around distance learning, around mental health support during distance learning, around reopening schools during the pandemic, around the achievement gap, which we are all fearing will grow dramatically under the digital divide, and more problems around that. So I think the county superintendent has done a great job listening, trying to come in and listen, but the next step needs to be making sure that the priorities that the County Office of Education is working on align with what the needs are across the county. And the needs need to be listened to both from school board members and superintendents and families. So I look forward to that.
Thank you. So next we will move back to a 60-second question. Melissa, you'll go first. And the question is, because you are both from the same part of the county, how will you keep in touch and learn the needs of all the school districts in Area 1?
Well, this for me is easy. I have on speed dial and on my text, all these group texts between school board members across our whole Area 1. For the past year being the president of the Santa Clara County School Boards Association, I was regularly checking in, not just with Area 1, but with school board members across the county to make sure I understood what people's challenges are. I think the biggest frustration for folks is when their challenges aren't being heard. And so I would keep this up. I mean, meeting regularly with school board members and meeting regularly, not just going to school board meetings, but asking people in positions in each district. So not just the board members, but PTAs and superintendents, what the challenges are, I think is really important as they change over time.
Cool. Thank you. Grace?
Could you ask the question again? Just to make
Absolutely.
sure I get it right. Thank you.
You are, since you're both from the same part of the county, how will you keep in touch and learn the needs of all the school districts in Area 1?
Thank you. So one thing that I have been doing is keeping in touch as far as being able to find out what kinds of activities are going on across the county and participating. So I have attended, for instance, school board meetings in Alum Rock, San Jose Unified, Berryessa, and across the county, and mostly in response to different challenges and issues which have shown up in those areas. And so I have been very active as far as participating and being able to attend not only in the trustee Area 1, Los Altos, Mountain View, and Palo Alto School District board meetings, but also these other ones across the county. We do at the county office hear about things across the county, and so it's those items that I've been able to build relationships across the county with not only school board members, but also board of supervisors, city mayors, and I have the endorsement from some local city mayors across the county that I'm proud to have received. Thank you. Thank
you. So next will be another 60-second question, and Grace, you'll go first. Excuse me. Is the Board of Education involved in the decision-making process for local school districts to restart in-person learning?
So as I said earlier, every school district is autonomous. And so there's a certain amount of, in the old engineering days, we used to call it not invented here. And so each school district kind of wants to do it their own way, and they have, certainly the ability and the right to do that. And although, as Melissa said earlier, they are in silos, there's a certain amount of pride, if you will, of school districts kind of doing it their own way and being able to make their own decisions. We were in the county office very active in providing guidelines for all of the counties, and we wrote guidelines based on interactions with the California Department of Education and the Public Health Department, such that we would have these guidelines for all school districts to be able to safely reopen. It were only guidelines, though, again, nothing directive that we have to tell everyone that they have to do, but certainly something that many school boards and school superintendents used as a reference for how they would do their reopening plans.
Thank you. Melissa.
I think traditionally, school boards across Santa Clara County wanted to operate in silos because they felt they knew what they were doing on all these issues and they didn't need help. What I saw was an amazing sense of relief when Mary Ann Dewan held hands with all of the superintendents across our county and the counties around us in the public health department to close together. That was an amazing sense of relief. And school board members that I've spoken to were hoping there'd be something like that on reopening. But I think the focus has been more treating it like it has been traditionally. Here's some resources, you guys do it however you want to do it. This is new stuff. We don't have best practices. We don't know how to share best practices. We need help on this stuff and we're going to need it going forward. And this is where I really would like to see the County Office of Education provide some support, some more support.
Thank you. Okay, so we will proceed on to our next question. Again, a 60-second question, and Melissa, you'll go first. What are the most valued programs and services that the board oversees, and how are they promoted?
Well, I'd say from a school district standpoint, the most valued services are the professional development services and the regular webinars that you can, well, they're now webinars. They were come down to the county office and come to the event, but information sessions. I know now for me as a board member in Palo Alto, the fact that my county superintendent meets regularly with the other county superintendents and the county superintendent, that's a very valued service. Of course, our services for the most vulnerable kids, the kids that are in the juvenile justice system and, have extreme mental health and special ed needs, those programs are very valued as well. I think there's a lot of programs for what there's budget for, and that's something that's going to need to be looked at as we go into this new world of very tight finances.
Thank you. Grace.
It's hard to say what the most valued programs are, but a number of them include certainly the technology that we provide across all the counties. We provide server services along with network services for many of the school districts, most of them. We provide professional development, as was mentioned, but we also run payroll. Basically, every teacher has our superintendent's signature on their paycheck. And so that's a critical infrastructure that we provide as a service. We do also provide special education, especially for the severely disabled students, and that's across the county. So all the school districts, almost all of them, basically have special ed teachers that are county office employees, and we run them in county office, in the classrooms in the local school districts. Another infrastructure project that we have, which has been growing in its importance, is a data zone. And that is a database and data warehouse that we've developed in the county office. And that's allowed school districts to be able to track for students longitudinally information on their accomplishments, on their attendance, and all sorts of information for their success in education.
Thank you. And we'll proceed on to the next question. Again, 60 seconds, and Grace, you'll go first. What is the greatest challenge facing the Office of Education in the next 2 years?
Ooh. Greatest challenge is, it depends on your circumstances and on your perspective, but certainly one of the greatest challenges for education in general is our funding. And that's where funding for education in California has just been drastically underfunded for so many years. And that's where in the county office, I've been on the Joint Legislative Action Committee for the last 6 years. And we have gone to legislators up in Sacramento to be able to advocate for more funding, typically more funding in my personal favorite area, preschools and early learning, but just funding in general. One of the things that our county office unfortunately has been victim to is confiscated funds. Because we're a basic aid county, we've lost $30 million this year and probably $35 million next year because of a budget gimmick that Governor Brown put in place, where all of our excess property taxes swept aside. So we've been working on trying to get that back too.
Thank you. Melissa.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't believe the pandemic is going away. and we're going to have to deal with that. Reopening and then sometimes closing schools, making sure that distance learning is effective, making sure that our most vulnerable students have access to all the things they need for education. And for those most vulnerable students, just having safety, security, food, healthcare needs to happen first for them to access their education. Making sure that if we're doing distance learning, that broadband is starting to be looked at as utility and not something we have to buy hotspots for each year for those who need it. I think this is going to be a very challenging next couple of years, and the county office is going to need to reprioritize what it focuses on in order to be effective. There's a lot of programs right now. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do all of them because I don't think the funding, going and begging for funding in Sacramento, is going to help in the financial situation we're going to be in.
Thank you. So we will move on to our next question on a new topic. This will be a 60-second question. Melissa, you'll go first. When are charter schools warranted, and do you expect requests to increase over your term?
That's an excellent question. I mean, the county office sees, or the County Board of Education sees charter school applications when school districts deny them and they decide to keep pulling it forward. And so, you know, there'll be a certain number of renewals for sure in the next couple of years, and whether there are some new ones that come forward will depend on whether school districts approve or don't approve. You know, a charter that provides better services for students than they're able to get in their local district, and by having it in the community improves the overall educational services for the whole community, that's warranted. I think the county office needs to make sure that's in fact how they're overseeing the charter schools they're responsible for. Overall, we're going to just need to make sure we have great public education for as many students as we can, which should be all of them.
Thank you. And Grace?
So charter schools are not necessarily warranted or not warranted. They are a legal entity by legislation that's 30 years old. As far as most recently, though, we have had some changes in the charter school laws. AB 1505 and AB 1507 are probably going to limit, excuse me, the number of new charters that are going to be coming to the either local school districts or the county board on appeal if they are denied locally. Some of the new criteria which are now necessary to evaluate charter schools include the fiscal impact of the charter school on the local school district. And so when you have a new charter school, which will essentially take money with the student away from the local school district, that negative impact will probably decide for many decisions to not open perhaps a new charter school. But for existing charter schools with renewals, there probably will be just the continuation of existing renewals based on, not based on the financial, but based on academic performance.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And now we'll continue with a 90-second question, continuing on the theme of charter schools. And Grace, you'll go first. Can you discuss charter schools and accountability in comparison to the other district schools?
That's an interesting question because the accountability for charter schools is dictated by law, and the requirements for accountability are the same kinds of standards and standardized testing that traditional local school districts have to fulfill. But however, the accountability is stricter in a sense because if local charter schools do not meet the academic necessity of increasing performance and maintaining or increasing performance for the different subgroups, the charter school can have its charter in jeopardy. Local school districts don't have that extra criteria of the risk of being closed based on their academics. And so that's one reason why charter schools have this extra accountability, if you will, or they're held more accountable, because if they don't meet the accountability requirements, then they can get closed. For that accountability, though, they do have some flexibility, and that's where their ability to have extra time in seat or innovative programs in pedagogy give them that ability to do more flexible teaching and relationship building with teachers and with parents and with families. But that accountability is strictly held to in evaluation and oversight by the County Office of Education. And we have a very strong department in charter schools that does that oversight.
Thank you. Melissa.
Yeah, for any of the schools that the county office has responsibility for, so that's not all of the charter schools, right? Because there's some charter schools that are approved by their local district. It is important that the county office follows through and makes sure that the metrics that were agreed to in the MOU are in fact looked at and are in fact the charter is held accountable to them if they're not meeting them. So, you know, obviously the academic agreements that are made that Grace has brought up, but also agreements on diversity, matching the diversity in their communities, particularly around special ed, and making sure that when there are issues and things aren't being met, that there's a plan put in place, and the county office takes some responsibility for a plan being put in place. This is not by law, but this is my own philosophy that this is what I'm about to say, which is if a charter school situation has created a situation that divides a community for whatever reason, I think if the county office is overseeing that charter school, they should provide some help and support, because divided communities is not what we need here. We need communities to hold together, united for our schools and for our students.
Thank you. So we will now move on to a new topic. Also 90 seconds, and Melissa, you'll go first. The question is, do you support Proposition 15? Why or why not?
Yes. You know, this is a really tough time, as I said before. I'm expecting financial free fall, and this is the only thing on the ballot that provides some financial relief to schools. It's not enough. It's not perfectly worded, but it's the only thing. And the best we could do is another thing in 2 years, 2022 on the ballot. And after financial free fall, what's the likelihood that a new tax is going to be voted in? So yes, I support Prop 15. And I think it's really important. You know, some people have said, well, some of that money is going to schools, but not all of it. Some of it is going to cities and counties. Yes. I said earlier, one of the things that we're worried about is the digital divide and the achievement gap. And the first thing that needs to be solved to make sure that we are addressing that is making sure that the basic food, healthcare, housing, social services are provided for students so they can access their education. And so the money that's going to cities and counties, I am hopeful will be used in a big way on social services. So in essence, much more than just the money coming to the schools will support students.
Thank you. Grace?
Yes, I support Proposition 15, which is the split roll proposition. And so it is going to be able to give education, I think, approximately $12 billion more dollars, which we definitely need. As I mentioned earlier, we are, as a state, probably around 40th as far as spending per student. And we're the 5th largest economic power in the world, California. So when I was growing up in California, excuse me, I grew up in the Los Angeles area. And at that time, a certain number of years ago, California was the #1 in funding for for students. And I was able to take AP classes, to be able to enjoy music and PE and science and a lot of extracurricular activities. And that was all before Prop 13 came into place. So I've seen with the change of Prop 13, the I'd say degradation of our spending and our education system. So in being able to refund or back to investing more in our students, I think Proposition 15 is a benefit for all. Unfortunately, Proposition 15 won't help basic aid districts as much as we would like. And so all the all the school districts in the North County area won't really get a windfall. But it's going to help across the state. And it's going to help especially districts that really need the money the most. So I do feel that Prop 15 is something that I am voting for and support.
Thank you. So now we'll proceed on to a new question. This will be 60 seconds, and Grace, you'll go first. How does the County Office of Education serve students who are not succeeding in traditional schools?
So we serve a lot of students who are not succeeding in traditional schools. As I mentioned, we are the safety net for a number of these kids. So we have alternative ed programs, which are for students who have been expelled from traditional schools. We also have a OYA, which is the Opportunity Youth Academy. It's a charter school that the county office has in its own, under its own wing. And it is for youth who have dropped out from school, kind of a comeback kids program for children, not really children, for youth who are 18 to 25 years old, who are unemployed, have dropped out of school. And so therefore we take them back in the charter school so that they can get their GED or complete their high school graduation requirements and do some career planning for postgraduate work, either in community college or a vocational work. So we do a lot of different programs specifically targeted for our kids who are underserved and who are not able to succeed in regular schools.
Thank you. And Melissa.
Yeah, well, just to add to that, I think one of the things the county office does is connect in with the community college system. And, we have an excellent community college system in this area. And our community colleges do provide, many of them, this is not managed by the County Board of Ed, but it's certainly encouraged, middle colleges and College Now programs so that you can earn your high school degree that way. Many kids don't fit into a standard comprehensive high school model. I would like to see the county office provide more in the way of advisory and best practices support for school districts who have kids who aren't fitting in the standard model, so that the kids don't actually fall out and be forced into county programs, that they actually can be served in their local districts. That can be done partially with professional development, but I think having some sort of repository of best practices to help districts share with each other would be incredibly helpful.
Thank you. So now the next question will be 90 seconds, and Melissa, you'll go first. When COVID is over, how will you assess and help narrow the student achievement gaps worsened by distance learning, technology gaps, and income inequality?
Hopefully we're working on that before COVID's done, because who knows when COVID's going to be done. I read an article today that when the pandemic in the last century ended, it wasn't clear. It wasn't like a one-day thing, like suddenly it's over. There was a slowing of new cases, and over time that slowed enough that people could start going on with their regular business. So rather than focusing on what we will do when it's over, I think we need to focus on what are we going to do now. And, the first thing is we need to figure out how to make sure that every student has what it takes so they can engage with their learning, so that basic needs met, and then the resources to do their education, whether it's live or distance. We have to make sure. We need to go and advocate up in Sacramento for broadband to be a utility. We need to work with all of the computer companies around here to make sure we have appliances for every student. We need to make sure that we have quiet places for students to work once they can access their education, and support services around them. For our Black and Brown students, we need to make sure that there isn't racism, biased practices, whether they're intended or unintended, so that they're not falling behind as a result of that. We need to make sure that special ed students are served. And that's going to mean some different ways to do it. And we need to share best practices and not have silos in order to figure out what those practices are.
Thank you. Grace.
Yes, as far as the achievement gap, it is a problem that we'll be working on before, after, and long after COVID is happening. Some of the things that I've been working on with respect to the achievement gap, as I mentioned earlier, is actually universal preschool, because we found that having kids be able to be educated for those couple of years before kindergarten makes sure that they will succeed for the rest of their lives. We have fewer high school dropouts, healthier kids. We have people who are productive and able to be contributing members of society. But with respect to existing kids also, I mean, because preschool is going to take a long time to see those kids go through. For existing kids, there are innovative programs that have been able to close the achievement gap. Some of those programs exist in charter schools that the county office has supported. And we have seen our charter schools do close the achievement gap much better than some of the local school districts, high achieving school districts in the area, because they specifically target those Black and brown kids who need the most work and service. There's a report out called the Top Bay Area Schools in the Bay Area for underserved kids, and they specifically highlight 9 out of the 27 schools in math for Latino students as being Santa Clara County authorized charter schools. And so some of those schools have programs that they are more than willing to share to be able to show that they can meet the achievement gap and close the achievement gap very effectively.
Thank you. So now for the next question, 60 seconds, and Grace, you'll go first. How well is the County Office of Education serving special needs students, and how has the pandemic affected these services?
So in 2019, the county office conducted a study on the continuum of services for students with disabilities. And the results of the study included an assessment of the current landscape of services for students with disabilities, identifying high quality inclusion programs that can act as models for schools and districts. We found best practices that can assist districts to increase their capacity to use inclusive practices. And 3 priorities were set. One was creating a culture of inclusion. We have a very successful award-winning inclusion collaborative inside the county office, which has been nationally recognized for its assistance to special ed programs. We also want to provide for quality instruction. And we also, the third is expanding the availability of social and emotional supports. Like implementing, we have 9 recommendations from the study. And so those will improve inclusion and outcomes for children with special needs.
Thank you. Melissa.
Yeah, I think all of those things that Grace mentioned are great if our schools are open. And that is really that's our challenge right now. Every district, every school that's serving special needs students that isn't fully open, which is most of them, is really challenged. For most special needs students, it's not enough to include them in distance learning. I mean, they need more support. They need hands-on support. Students that have severe special ed issues need everything from, someone sitting next to them, holding their hands, helping them through things, to help with things like toileting. This has been a real struggle, and we have to figure out where they're doing it in a better way, and we need to share those practices. I don't see right now a place where that's happening, and I think this is something the county office really should take a priority on.
Thank you. So next question, 90 seconds, and go first to Melissa. Can you discuss the Office of Education's role in early childhood education programs and any improvements you would make?
Yes, I think this is an area that Grace and I agree. Early childhood education isn't just important for families and students, it's important for our community if we don't want to have to be investing again and again in students later on. I mean, it starts the trajectory early. the county office no one has enough money right now for early childhood education. We were all very optimistic that there would be a big bunch of money coming in from Gavin Newsom, coming in from the state at the beginning of the year. Clearly that hasn't happened. I don't believe, as I said earlier, for the next 2 years that going to the state and advocating for more money in the next couple of years is going to get us more money. So I think we need to look at some more creative options. And I believe that in this area, which has a lot of wealth in different pockets, from nonprofits to for-profits to individual family foundations, we need to be going in and working through all of our contacts there and have a collaborative that raises money for making sure early education isn't just available, but it's also consistent. And the county office can provide a lot of support and leadership on consistency in early education, so that every student coming out of an early education program has the same start going into kindergarten.
Thank you. Grace.
Could you read the question again, please?
Absolutely. Can you discuss the Office of Education's role in early childhood education programs and any improvements you would make?
Okay. So one of the things certainly that I've been working really hard on is early education. And that started basically 8 years ago when I co-founded the Strong Start Coalition. That's an organization of school board members, government entities, foundations, nonprofit organizations, childcare providers, service providers, and we are all working on increasing the access for early education opportunities for children 0 to 8 years old in Santa Clara County. So that's something that I've been working on hard for many years. As far as the Office of Education's particular role, we have some direct responsibility for the Head Start programs throughout the Santa Clara County, along with the California State Preschool. And among all of those, we have approximately 2,000, almost 3,000 children that we serve in these subsidized programs for low-income families. But as far as really being able to offer something that's universal, it is, as Melissa said, something that we need funding for. And I've been working with the Funding the Next Generation organization, the working group based out of San Francisco, where they have been working with counties across the state and also across the country, organizations which are trying to find revenue streams for early learning programs for children and youth. And so that includes programs like the Universal Preschool program in Seattle, or also in Denver, Colorado, or in San Antonio, Texas, that we can also model and do things like that.
Thank you. So our next question will be 60 seconds, and we'll start with Grace. What changes would you like to see by the end of your term?
Do I get a magic wand? Changes by the end of this 4-year term, I guess.
Yeah.
I would like to see, hopefully, COVID solved, that we move on in 4 years to doing what we usually do. I would like to see the ability for us to have funding for education, whether in this Proposition 15 or if in 2 years, as Melissa said, we have the opportunity again to get more funding for education. I would like to see the achievement gap closed even more. That is so important, that programs that are doing the job well need to be shared and across boundaries and across philosophies. We need to have more collaboration with the teachers union, perhaps, to be able to implement some of the requirements and abilities that charter schools have been able to facilitate.
Thank you. Melissa.
I believe that we have a lot of challenges right now, but I have a lot of optimism. I believe that we could have the best county office of education in the state. And we don't right now, but I think we have everything here that we need to make that happen. First thing is, I think that the county office could be the repository for best practices across the county and across the state. And if they were a repository and saw themselves as such, they could provide advisory services to superintendents and schools and school districts when they need it. They could help provide some economies of scale and support systems like they do with payroll in other systems, so where it wouldn't be just programmatic, it would actually be systematic. So for example, they helped us buy PPE recently, but it was programmatic. We don't have a system for purchasing. I think there are things that could happen that if we focus on what the greatest needs are right now, where there's an opportunity to do that, we could make the Santa Clara County Office of Education the best in the state.
Thank you. And then our next question, 60 seconds, starting with Melissa. How would you work productively with fellow board members, even when you disagree on policies and issues?
Oh, I have a lot of experience having done this for 12 years. There's two ways to work as a board member. One is to just say, hey, I have a belief and it's my way or the highway. And in the end, it's majority vote. And so think I got the majority, let's just vote it. Or I'm not sure I have the majority, but I'll just vote what I want. That's not my style. I'm much more collaborative. If you can think about why your cohorts who are in another position are where they are and try to find some commonality there, you can come together with a better solution. And that's what I believe that we should be working for. And that's what I'm working for. This is one of the reasons I believe the teachers union has endorsed me, because I believe we're working with the teachers and we need to come together and make sure we're working together on the behalf of our kids, not at different places, but together. And that's what I would be doing with my board colleagues as well.
Thank you. Grace.
As far as working productively with our board members, that's something that I've been working on also for the last 13 years. And I've had certainly a gamut of board members that at some points we've had some, not really fisticuffs, but we have had some disagreements, but we've always come out working ideally for what's best for the children. And that's one thing that we found in common, and that is an important common value. I always view that our work on the board is for the value and benefit of the children in the county, and that sometimes the needs and requests of adults sometimes get in the way. And so I think that the majority of the board and most all the board members that I've worked with have always felt that the children are the most important beneficiaries. And it's by working with those common values that I learned as a manager at Hewlett Packard, that by working with common values that we can build up the rest of our working relationship and common goals.
Thank you. Now for our next question, which will go to Grace first. What ideas do you have for collaboration with both governmental and non-governmental agencies and organizations?
So I would say that ideas for collaboration are what I've been doing for the last 8 years with the Strong Start Coalition. We've been working with government entities and also non-government entities and nonprofits to work on having, again, access for early learning opportunities. Examples of that is that I've worked with the Office of Supervisors Ellenberg and with Dana Bunnett and Julie Cates with the Kids in Common and League of Women Voters, and we were able to provide and work on and initiate the first county budget for children in Santa Clara County. This is something that took a couple of years for us to work on, and it was something that was collaborative based on 10 years of a children's county budget in San Mateo County. So being able to create that and work with that in Santa Clara County was a major achievement that I'm really proud of. And by being able to focus on the investment in children in the county, we can see where our programs and future investments need to be.
Thank you. Melissa.
Yeah, collaboration is incredibly important. And the first thing I would ask the county office is, when was the last time you went out to all of the board members across the county and asked what their priorities are, because those are the areas, those overlapping areas, which I was surprised during shelter in place when I had my meetings with the Santa Clara County office. I'm sorry, the Santa Clara County School Boards Association, how common they are. Those are the things that people are going to agree to collaborate on. And when people agree to collaborate, it's not just a strategy. You can actually do the implementation. One of the things that's frustrating to me is when we have collaborative groups that get together, but then the implementation is way too hard to make happen. And at that point, I think it's important for people to step back and say, what are we focusing on wrong? Do we need to make an adjustment in order for it to work? This is why 27 out of the 30 school board members across our trustee area are supporting me for this office, because they've seen me do it and they're hoping I will continue.
Thank you. And now our very final question before closing statements. And this will go to Melissa first. What issue should we have asked you about during the forum today, and tell us why?
Yeah, I was really surprised you didn't ask me about mental health support. This is something that everybody is concerned about. And maybe I'm particularly sensitive because I come from Palo Alto, and after 12 years on the board and 2 suicide clusters, I feel like I've gotten my own PhD in mental health crisis in your community. But we need to get on top of this, and waiting till someone has a crisis isn't the way to deal with it. Even if we do wait, we don't have enough mental health support and wraparound services and continuity of care for young people. But if we could get in front of it, if we can focus on student connectivity to each other and to their schools, and giving students a sense of purpose, connecting them to things like community service where they're helping other people, these things make students more resilient and more connected. And you won't solve all the mental health issues, but if you're paying attention up front, if you're looking at this as a wraparound situation, we will do a much better job. And in this pandemic, that's really important.
Thank you. Grace.
So the question that is kind of the elephant in the room that hasn't been asked, but I think should be, is how has this become such an expensive race for this County Board of Education? And it's something that I wonder for myself. I wish all the money that's now been fundraised in both sides could instead go to students and classrooms. But I have been catching up to my opponent, who's raised more than $100,000 early in the race. And just over the weekend, she received another $30,000 from the Teachers Union in Eastside San Jose. Easily, this is more than an order of magnitude than my previous races. I've had 3 elections, and my highest fundraising for any of those elections was $10,000. And so maybe in the future, we need to impose some campaign limits. But I'm heartened that countless supporters and friends have stepped in to help raise funds for me and help work on my campaign. And they will continue to do so, and I thank them. It shows my commitment and experience for supporting the education for all children.
Thank you. And now we will move to the 1-minute closing statements for both candidates. And Grace, can you go first?
Okay, closing statement. Yeah. Thank you, Los Altos Mountain View League of Women Voters, for this candidate forum. My 13 years of experience on the Santa Clara County Board will help our County Office of Education see through this pandemic. I know how the county office works, and I know its strengths and weaknesses. We need experienced leadership for the complexities of this office. I was pleased to receive Los Altos Town Crier's endorsement, which said that Ma combines diligent work on the board with a practical approach and focus on improving education outcomes for all students. She has done a good job on the board. She's fair-minded, and she has her priorities straight. I have built years of relationships and networking across the county to advocate for all of our students. I've accomplished much in starting a universal preschool movement in Santa Clara County, but much more needs to be done. I respectfully ask for your vote to continue working for all of the children in Santa Clara County. Thank you.
Thank you. And Melissa.
Thank you, League of Women's Voters and everyone who's watching. These are tough times for us all. Our local public schools are facing unprecedented challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic has left our school districts and schools in a very vulnerable position. Trying to serve all of our students, reopen schools, address mental health concerns, special ed challenges, and the growing achievement gap in the face of the digital divide. all the while facing crushing budget deficits and public health risks. These are challenging times that demand smart new leadership. We cannot continue business as usual when it comes to our schools. We need change. Now more than ever, we need to work together to find the best practices so that we are not all individually reinventing the wheel and we can serve all of our students well. 27 of the 30 school board members in our trustee areas have endorsed me because they have seen me reach out to their communities and board members, and they know I work hard, and they know I will work hard to bring people together to make change. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our forum. I would like to thank the candidates for participating and the volunteers who made this forum possible. The League of Women Voters believes that a democratic government depends on the informed and active participation of its citizens, and we hope that the insights you've gained from this forum will help in planning your vote. To look at a personalized ballot with information about your candidates and ballot initiatives, please visit the Voters Edge website at www.votersedge.org after you receive your ballot. Voters Edge also provides information about major donors for state ballot initiatives. For the November 3rd election, please vote early and deposit your signed ballot in a ballot drop box or mailbox as soon as possible. Thank you for helping make our democracy work. This concludes our forum.